MS Now's Laura Hafley joins us from LaGuardia Airport. We're also joined by MS Now senior transportation reporter Josh Einiger and airline pilot and former FAA safety team representative Kyle Bailey, who has authored the book Witness, JFK Jr.'s Fatal Flight. Laura, bring us the latest. What do we know at this hour?
Well, Anna, that gut-wrenching audio you just played, that happened just before midnight last night. That Air Canada operated flight landing at LaGuardia, crashing into that Port Authority fire truck. The damage so severe, that hit so hard, it crushed the nose of the plane and killed both pilots. We also know 2 Port Authority employees on board that fire truck were injured. There were 72 passengers on board, dozens of them taken to the hospital, many with very serious injuries. We also know there was 1 unaccompanied minor on board. We know they've been reunited with their family, though. So what happens next? Well, we know the National Transportation Safety Board is on the tarmac right now here at LaGuardia, and the entire airport is closed until at least 2 p.m., something we heard from officials early this morning. Take a listen.
More investigators we anticipate to be on site around 6 this morning, and then we will follow their lead on what their investigation requires, and they will have the time they need to make that determination.
When you say 2 p.m., is that the earliest it could reopen?
That is the earliest it could reopen.
But it could be later.
It could be later if they decide that they need additional time as part of their investigation.
So the biggest question now is, why was that fire truck on the tarmac? What happened here? Apparently, the fire truck was cleared to cross the tarmac. It was on its way to actually a United flight to help them with a different incident when this crash took place. And as you heard, that air traffic control employee trying desperately to get the fire truck to stop, to back them off, and it just wasn't soon enough. And Anna, we know because we've heard it over the last several months, air traffic controllers are severely understaffed. So that will certainly be at the center of this NTSB investigation. They're going to be asking themselves who was in the control tower, if there were enough people to help with flights landing and taking off from LaGuardia. Just some of the questions NTSB is going to have to answer. But these investigations take a significant amount of time. Anna.
That's right. And we know LaGuardia expected to be closed until at least 2 o'clock Eastern today. Laura Hafley, keep us posted. Thank you so much. Josh, let's dig deeper into what could have happened here. Officials say there was this fire truck on its way to a different emergency involving fumes on a United flight. Talk to us more about what you're learning and the role this other incident potentially played in this crash.
So, Anna, there's this term, everything, everywhere, all at once. And a lot of times that's what goes on in the control tower at a busy airport. You've got a controller working in multiple directions, looking at multiple things at the same time, all of it important. And then in the middle of all that, you have a flight unrelated to the Air Canada flight, that United flight Laura was talking about, abort its takeoff. And then the pilots of that flight said that there were fumes in the plane and that flight attendants were starting to get sick and they were going to have to evacuate. So that's going on at one moment. The controller is now trying to accommodate that flight. They're trying to roll fire engines. They're trying to move other planes out of the way so that if there were an evacuation, it could be done safely. And oh, by the way, that same controller was handling arrival traffic onto runway 4 at LaGuardia. So he cleared that Air Canada flight 8646 from Montreal to land on runway 4. And then the fire engines that were called to help the United flight, whose base is on the other side of that runway, called for clearance to cross. And the controller, according to control tower tapes that I spent hours listening to overnight, gave them that clearance to cross the runway that he had already cleared that regional jet to land on. He realized what was happening moments before it happened, but obviously, as we've seen it was too late. And Anna, we've been talking for a long time about workload in the control tower. Yes, staffing is an issue, but another issue equally important and related is workload. And the NTSB has spoken extensively about when air traffic controllers end up with so much on their plate that it's difficult to prioritize, and decision making is made more difficult. No one is going to fault the individual controller, certainly not at this early stage. The NTSB looks at big systems, reasons why things happen, and that's what they're likely going to be looking at among so many other things over the coming days, weeks, and months.
Kyle, I want to play part of that moment from the air traffic control tower again. Let's listen to that.
Stop, truck one, stop. Stop, truck one, stop. Stop, truck one, stop. Del 2603, go around, runway heading 2000. Jet 646. Jet 646, I see you collide with a vehicle here, just hold position. I know you can't move. The vehicle's there responding to you now.
Kyle, does anything jump out to you listening to that? And does it give you any idea of what could have gone wrong?
Well, it's obviously a communications issue. He was frantically trying to get the fire truck to stop. One thing I want to point out is LaGuardia is on a very small piece of property with extensive, complicated taxiways as well as intersecting runways. When I look at an airport chart, LaGuardia Airport, I see what's called a hot spot, which is highlighted on an airport chart as a red circle, very close to where that accident happened. And what that tells me is in that vicinity, there have been previous close call incidents or safety hazards involving separation of aircraft. And that's quite notable to me. The accident wasn't actually in the hotspot. It was right in the vicinity of the hotspot. So that's kind of interesting. The other thing, too, is, whenever you're crossing a runway as an airplane pilot, whether you have a clearance or not, you always look in both directions to make sure there's no airplanes on the arrival or on the departure, just to make sure that there aren't mistakes made by the controllers. Again, we're talking a fire truck, not an airplane, but just wondering why that airplane on the runway or on approach wasn't visible when the fire truck started rolling. But most importantly, I want to say these were human beings, regardless of who's found to blame. I mean, it is obvious that they were responding to an emergency. Their adrenaline probably was pumping, both the controllers and the fire truck driver. And unfortunately, accidents do happen. And, sadly, in this case, there was tragedy.
Kyle, what key questions will investigators be trying to answer now?
The key thing, and I think they're going to have a pretty good idea of what happened very quickly, probably within 24 hours, although it won't be released, probably for weeks to months. But the key thing is the air traffic control tapes. Everything is recorded. Also, there are systems in the airplane that for tracking other aircraft. They're going to look at that to see the positioning of different aircraft, as well as the LaGuardia has a ground radar, so the controllers could actually see airplanes in very poor visibility on the ground. So all three of those systems will play a key part here, and I actually think there's going to be a pretty good idea of what happened fairly quickly.